Ambassador Taemin Park stood at the massive window of his quarters aboard the diplomatic transport ship. Stars stretched endlessly in all directions, but his eyes focused on the enormous structure growing larger with each passing hour. The Galactic Council Station looked like a crystal flower blooming in the darkness of space. Its 12 arms reached out from a central hub, each one designed for a different alien species. Humans had never seen anything like it before. 3 months had passed since first contact, 3 months since human explorers stumbled upon an alien patrol ship near the edge of their solar system, 3 months since everything changed for humanity. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council and claimed to govern this entire region of space. They said humans were new and needed to learn the rules. Today would be the day humans learned what those rules meant. Taemin adjusted his black diplomatic uniform and checked his appearance in the mirror. At 45 years old, he had served his country as a soldier before becoming a diplomat. His face showed the lines of experience, and his dark eyes held a calm confidence that had served him well in many difficult negotiations. Today would test everything he had learned about dealing with hostile powers. The transport ship docked with a soft vibration that ran through the hull. Captain Ji-Yun Choi appeared at his door moments later. She was young for a starship captain, barely 30, but she had proven herself during the long journey from Earth. Her technical skills with communications equipment had impressed even the alien observers who monitored their approach. "Ambassador, we have docked successfully," she reported. "The aliens are waiting for you in their main chamber. They sent very specific instructions about where you should go and how you should behave." Taemin nodded and picked up his briefcase. Inside were the documents that represented humanity's hopes for peaceful coexistence. Trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and offers of mutual cooperation filled the case. He had spent weeks preparing for every possible scenario. Every scenario except complete rejection. "Captain, maintain communication with our escort fleet," he said quietly. "Admiral Kim should know everything that happens in that chamber." "Understood, Ambassador. The quantum link is active and secure." Taemin walked through the docking tube and entered the alien station. The corridors were enormous, designed to accommodate species much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with soft light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The air smelled different here, carrying scents of metals and chemicals he could not identify. 2 alien guards waited for him at the end of the corridor. They looked like giant insects walking upright, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the corridor lights. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that clicked softly as they moved. Neither guard spoke, but they gestured for him to follow. The walk took nearly 20 minutes through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that hurt his eyes to follow. Finally, they reached a set of doors that towered 30 feet above his head. The doors opened silently, revealing the council chamber beyond. Taemin stepped inside and felt his breath catch in his throat. The chamber was a perfect sphere, easily 200 feet in diameter. 12 platforms floated at different levels around the walls, each one holding representatives of different alien species. Some platforms held creatures he could not have imagined in his worst nightmares. Others held beings of such strange beauty that they seemed like living art. At the highest platform sat the Supreme Arbiter Velthok. The insectoid leader was enormous, at least 12 feet tall when standing. Its 4 arms moved constantly as it spoke, and its compound eyes seemed to look in all directions at once. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers throughout the chamber, translated into perfect human language. "The human representative will stand in the center of the chamber," Velthok announced. "You will speak only when given permission. You will answer all questions truthfully. You will accept the judgment of this council without argument." Taemin walked to the center of the chamber and stood on a small platform that rose from the floor. He placed his briefcase beside him and clasped his hands behind his back in a respectful posture. Around him, the 12 alien species studied him like scientists examining a new specimen. The species known as humans has been observed for 3 standard months, Velthok continued. In that time, you have demonstrated 17 violations of galactic law. You will now hear the charges against your species. A new voice spoke from a platform to his left. The speaker looked like a giant slug with tentacles where a human would have arms. Its skin was purple and covered in slime that dripped constantly onto the platform below. Charge 1. Unauthorized. Faster than light travel. Your species developed space-folding technology without council approval. This technology was used to expand beyond your home system without permission. Another voice spoke from his right. This alien looked like it was made of living crystal, its body reflecting and refracting the chamber lights into rainbow patterns on the walls. Charge 2. Construction of military vessels. Your species built warships before requesting permission. To defend yourselves, these ships carry weapons that violate the new species protection protocols. More voices joined in, each one reading charges that made Tayman's heart sink lower. Unauthorized colonization, aggressive expansion patterns, failure to submit to guided evolution, possession of dangerous artificial intelligence, development of quantum communication networks. The list went on and on. When the last charge was read, Supreme Arbiter Velthok leaned forward on its platform. These charges carry only one possible sentence under galactic law. Your species must surrender all military assets immediately. All human colonies beyond your home system must be evacuated. All humans must submit to guided evolution under council supervision. Those who refuse will be eliminated for the safety of civilized species everywhere. Tayman stood quietly for a long moment, processing what he had heard. Finally, he spoke in a calm, steady voice. Honored arbiters, I request clarification on these charges. Humanity was never informed that these laws existed. We developed our technology independently and expanded into uninhabited systems. We built defensive ships only after encountering hostile alien forces in deep space. We established colonies on uninhabited worlds that belonged to no one. The crystal being that had spoken before made a sound like breaking glass. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. All space in this region belongs to the Galactic Council. All technology development must be approved by the Council. All species must follow the approved evolutionary path determined by their betters. And who determined that you were our betters? Tayman asked quietly. The chamber fell silent. Several of the alien representatives made sounds that the translator could not convert into human language. Supreme Arbiter Velthok raised all 4 arms in what was clearly a threatening gesture. You dare question the authority of the Galactic Council? You dare suggest that a primitive species like humans could be equal to civilized beings who have traveled the stars for thousands of years? I dare to suggest that all intelligent species deserve respect and the right to determine their own destiny, Tayman replied. I dare to suggest that civilization should be measured by wisdom and compassion, not by technological advancement or age. More angry sounds filled the chamber. The slug-like being began speaking rapidly in its own language while purple slime flew from its tentacles. The crystal being glowed brighter, casting harsh shadows on the chamber walls. Other aliens made threatening gestures or sounds that needed no translation. Supreme Arbiter Velthok raised one arm for silence. The human species has now added a new charge to their list of crimes. Disrespect for lawful authority. The sentence remains the same, but the timeline has changed. You have 72 standard hours to return to your home system and begin surrendering your military assets. If you refuse, the Council will take action to protect civilized space from your aggressive expansion. Tayman nodded slowly. I understand your position, Supreme Arbiter. I will communicate your demands to my government. I request permission to return to my ship to send this message. Permission granted. You will return in 72 hours with your species' answer. Choose wisely, human. This is the only offer of mercy your species will receive. Tayman picked up his briefcase and bowed respectfully to the assembled council. He turned and walked toward the chamber doors, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. The alien guards escorted him back through the twisting corridors to his ship. As soon as he was aboard, Tayman activated his quantum communicator and spoke quietly in Korean to Admiral So-Young Kim aboard the flagship Seoul's Pride. The negotiations have failed completely. They demand total surrender and submission to alien control. They have given us 72 hours to comply or face military action. Admiral Kim's voice came back immediately, also speaking in Korean so the alien monitors could not understand. Understood, Ambassador. How many ships do they have in this system? I counted at least 40 vessels during our approach. All appear to be military ships with advanced energy weapons and defensive shields. They clearly consider this a show of force, and they believe we only brought 12 diplomatic escort ships with primitive weapons. 48 hours had passed since the ultimatum. Taemin Park stood once again in his quarters, but this time he felt different. The weight of what was about to happen pressed down on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. He had spent 2 days in communication with Earth, receiving final instructions from the President and the Military Council. The decision had been unanimous. He dressed carefully in traditional Korean diplomatic attire, a dark blue hanbok with silver threading that represented his nation's colors. The formal clothes felt strange after months of wearing military-style uniforms, but today called for tradition and ceremony. Today would mark either the beginning of a new era of peace or the start of humanity's first interstellar war. His briefcase sat on the small table beside his bed. Inside were the documents he would present to the Council, but they were not surrender papers. Instead, they contained humanity's formal response to the ultimatum and detailed records of every communication between the two species. History would judge what happened next, and Taemin wanted that history to be complete and accurate. Captain Ji-eun Choi knocked on his door at exactly the appointed time. She looked nervous, which was unusual for the normally confident young officer. Her hands moved restlessly as she checked her communication equipment one final time. "Ambassador, all systems are ready," she reported. "The quantum link to Admiral Kim is active and fully encrypted. She will see and hear everything that happens in the council chamber." "Good. Has there been any change in the alien fleet positions?" "No, sir. They maintain the same formation around the station. 47 warships in a defensive pattern. Our escorts remain at the designated coordinates 2 million kilometers away." Taemin nodded and picked up his briefcase. The weight felt different now, heavier somehow, though the contents had not changed. "Captain, whatever happens in that chamber, I want you to maintain communication with our fleet. Do not break contact under any circumstances." "Understood, Ambassador." "What if they try to jam our communications?" "They will try. Our equipment should hold up, but if you lose contact, assume the worst and act accordingly." Ji-eun's face went pale, but she nodded firmly. "Yes, sir." "Good luck, Ambassador." The walk through the alien station felt different this time. The same enormous corridors stretched before him, the same strange symbols glowed on the walls, but now they seemed threatening rather than merely alien. The insectoid guards who escorted him clicked their armor more loudly, and their compound eyes tracked his every movement. When the massive chamber doors opened, Taemin was surprised to see that more aliens had gathered for this final session. The 12 main platforms still held the council members, but smaller platforms around the chamber now held dozens of observers from other species. Word had apparently spread throughout the galactic community that something important was about to happen. Taemin walked to the center platform and placed his briefcase beside him. He stood straight and calm, his hands clasped behind his back in the same respectful posture he had used before. The alien representatives studied him with what seemed like amusement. Clearly, they expected him to beg for mercy or plead for more time. Supreme Arbiter Velthok spoke first, its 4 arms gesturing dramatically. "The human representative returns. We trust you have communicated our generous offer to your species. What answer does humanity give to the Galactic Council?" Before Taemin could respond, the slug-like creature called Counselor Regnath made a wet, bubbling sound that the translator converted into laughter. "Look at the primitive creature in its primitive clothes. Did they send their court jester to negotiate surrender terms?" More laughter came from other platforms. The crystal being called Arbiter Corvell chimed like breaking bells. "Perhaps they dress this way for funeral ceremonies. How appropriate, considering their species will soon be extinct." Taemin waited patiently for the laughter to die down. When the chamber was quiet again, he spoke in a clear, steady voice. "Honored arbiters, I bring the formal response of the Terran Republic to your ultimatum." He opened his briefcase and withdrew a document case made of polished metal. The case bore the seal of Earth and was engraved with text in multiple human languages. "This document contains our complete response to your demands, along with supporting evidence and legal precedents." Velthok gestured dismissively with one arm. "We do not need to read surrender documents. Simply state whether your species will comply with our demands or choose extinction." I am afraid our response is more complex than a simple yes or no, Taemin replied. We have carefully reviewed each charge against humanity and found them to be without legal foundation. We have also researched the history of the Galactic Council and discovered several interesting facts. The laughter stopped abruptly. Corvell's crystal body flashed brighter. You dare to question the authority of this council? You dare to research your betters? I dare to seek truth and justice, Taemin answered. For example, I discovered that the Galactic Council has existed for only 300 years, not thousands as you claimed. I learned that your authority extends to only 47 star systems, not the entire galaxy. Most importantly, I found that 12 of the species represented here were conquered by force and had no choice but to join your council. Angry sounds filled the chamber. Several aliens began speaking rapidly in their own languages, while the translator struggled to keep up. Threats and insults poured from the platforms in a dozen different forms. Reganath's tentacles whipped through the air, spraying purple slime in all directions. How dare you spread lies about the glorious history of the council? How dare you question our right to rule? These are not lies, Taemin said calmly. They are facts recorded in your own databases, which we accessed during our 3 months of peaceful observation. Your council claims to promote civilization, but your history shows only conquest and forced submission. Corvell rose from its platform, towering over the chamber like a living crystal mountain. Its body blazed with angry light that hurt to look at directly. Inferior species do not question their superiors. Inferior species do not investigate their betters. You have violated the most sacred laws of galactic civilization. And what civilization is that? Taemin asked. The civilization that destroys entire species for refusing to surrender their freedom. The civilization that enslaves the weak and calls it guidance. The civilization that fears independent thought so much that it forbids other species from developing their own technology. Supreme. Arbiter Velthok raised all 4 arms and the chamber fell silent, except for the sound of its mandibles clicking together. Enough! You have heard our generous offer. What is humanity's answer? Taemin straightened and spoke in a voice that carried clearly throughout the chamber. The Terran Republic formally rejects your ultimatum. We will not surrender our ships, abandon our colonies, or submit to alien control. We claim our right as a free and independent species to exist and expand according to our own choices. The silence that followed was complete and absolute. No alien moved or spoke. Even the background hum of the station's systems seemed to pause. Then Corvell stepped forward and raised one crystalline appendage high above its head. Then you choose death, it screamed, and brought its arm down in a crushing blow aimed at Taemin's face. The crystal appendage struck Taemin across the left cheek with tremendous force, opening a deep cut that began bleeding immediately. The impact staggered him, but did not knock him down. Blood ran down his face and dripped onto his traditional clothes, staining the blue fabric dark red. The chamber erupted in cheers and applause from the alien observers. Clearly striking the human representative was seen as entertainment rather than diplomacy. Taemin slowly reached up and touched the cut on his face, his fingers coming away wet with blood. Inferior species do not negotiate, Corvell declared, triumphantly. They obey or they die. Choose quickly, human, before I decide to finish what I started. Taemin looked around the chamber at each council member in turn. His expression had not changed, despite the pain and blood. His voice remained, calm and steady as he spoke. You have just committed an act of war against the Terran Republic. I formally invoke Article 12 of the Galactic Warfare Protocols. The cheering stopped instantly. Velthok's compound eyes focused on Taemin with obvious confusion. What did you say? Article 12 of the Galactic Warfare Protocols, Taemin repeated. Physical assault upon a diplomatic representative during formal negotiations constitutes an act of war. The attacked species has the right to immediate military response. Regnath's tentacles waved frantically. Impossible! Primitive species cannot invoke warfare protocols. You barely qualify as spacefaring. Yet here I am invoking them, Taemin said. He opened his briefcase again and withdrew a small device that looked unremarkable, except for the soft blue light that pulsed along its surface. This is a quantum entanglement communicator. My military commander is currently watching this proceeding through a live feed. Several aliens began speaking at once, their voices overlapping into an incomprehensible noise. Tae-min waited for quiet, then continued speaking. Admiral So-Young Kim is the commanding officer of the Terran Republic Navy's First Fleet. She is also a very protective person who does not appreciate seeing her diplomats assaulted. Admiral So-Young Kim stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the tactical display. At 52 years old, she had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Every simulation, every training exercise, every sleepless night studying alien technology had led to this battle. The bridge around her hummed with quiet activity as her crew worked at their stations. Lieutenant Commander Hyun-Woo Lee sat at the tactical station, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed the positions of every ship in the system. The young officer had graduated at the top of his class from the Naval Academy, but this was his first real combat mission. His voice remained steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. "Admiral, all ships report ready," he announced. The Council fleet maintains standard defensive formation around the station, 47 vessels total, ranging from light cruisers to heavy battleships. Captain Ji-eun Choi worked at the communications station, splitting her attention between monitoring the diplomatic feed from the Council chamber and coordinating with the human fleet. The quantum entanglement communicators allowed instant communication across any distance, giving the humans a significant advantage in coordinating their attack. "Admiral," Ji-eun reported, "I have clear video and audio from Ambassador Park's location. The aliens are proceeding with their ultimatum as expected." Kim nodded and studied the enemy fleet positions. The Council ships were impressive, massive vessels that dwarfed the human escorts. Their energy shields glowed faintly around each hull, and weapon ports bristled along their sides like the spines of some deadly creature. Any one of those ships could probably destroy an entire human city with a single shot. "Analysis, Hyun-Woo," Kim requested. "What are we facing?" The tactical officer called up detailed scans of the alien vessels. The Council fleet consists of 12 different ship designs representing their various member species. Most are equipped with plasma cannons, particle beam weapons, and energy torpedoes. All ships show active shielding and what appears to be point defense systems. Estimated combat effectiveness? Based on our observations during the approach, each of their heavy ships could engage multiple human vessels simultaneously. Their shields can absorb tremendous amounts of energy, and their weapons have approximately 3 times the range of our conventional systems. Kim allowed herself a small smile. "Conventional systems. Tell me about their sensor capabilities." "Limited to energy signature detection and visual observation. They scan for reactor emissions, weapon signatures, and communication frequencies. Their technology appears to be entirely energy-based, which means they cannot detect ships that produce no energy signatures." "Correct, Admiral. They have no equivalent to our passive detection systems or kinetic weapon technology." The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency as they prepared for battle. Navigation Officer Sung-Ho Park plotted approach vectors that would bring the human ships within range while remaining undetected. Weapons Officer Min Jun-han checked and rechecked the targeting systems that would guide their attack. Each officer knew that humanity's future might depend on their performance in the next few minutes. Through the main view screen, Kim watched the Council station growing larger as her fleet approached. The massive structure looked peaceful from this distance, its crystal arms catching and reflecting the light from the system's star. It was hard to believe that inside that beautiful building, her friend and colleague was facing death threats from alien overlords. "Admiral," Ji-eun called out, "Ambassador Park is entering the Council chamber for the final session. The aliens have brought additional observers. This appears to be some kind of public spectacle." Kim's jaw tightened. Making a public show of humiliating humanity was exactly the kind of behavior she had expected from the Council. They viewed humans as primitive animals to be trained or destroyed for the entertainment of their betters. That attitude would be their downfall. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim," she announced over the fleet communication channel. "Prepare for Operation Hanbok. Remember, we are not just fighting for humanity's freedom. We are fighting to prove that bullies and tyrants have no place among the stars." 12 human ships hung in space 2 million kilometers from the Council station. To alien sensors, they appeared to be simple escort vessels with basic fusion drives and kinetic weapons. The Council had scanned similar ships during first contact and dismissed them as primitive relics barely capable of interplanetary travel. What the aliens had not realized was that those first ships had been carefully selected from Earth's naval museums. Ancient vessels from humanity's early space exploration period, restored to working condition specifically to create a false impression of human capabilities. The real human fleet remained hidden in deep space, using stealth technology that the energy-dependent aliens could not detect. "Admiral," Seung-ho reported from the navigation station, "we are approaching the designated coordinates. All ships report stealth systems operating at full efficiency." Kim nodded and activated her personal communication device. "Soul's Pride. To Ghost Squadron. Report status." "Ghost Leader to Soul's Pride," came the reply from Commander Taeho Kim, her younger brother and leader of the Stealth Squadron. "All ships dark and ready. We have clear targeting solutions on the primary Council vessels." "Shadow Squadron reporting," added Commander So-Ra Yoon from the 2nd Stealth Group. "Positions locked. The aliens still show no signs of detecting our presence." "Wraith Squadron standing by," reported Commander Hyun-Jin Park. "All weapons charged and ready." Kim looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These young officers represented the best of humanity, trained for years in the art of space warfare. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return home. Now they waited for her order to begin humanity's first interstellar war. The communication channel from the Council chamber crackled to life, carrying Ambassador Park's voice as he faced the alien tribunal. Kim listened as the charges were read, as the ultimatum was delivered, as her friend was threatened with death for simply existing as a free human being. "This is intolerable," Minjun muttered from the weapons station. "They treat him like an animal." "Patience," Kim replied quietly. "The ambassador knows what he is doing. Wait for the signal." They did not have to wait long. Ambassador Park's voice came through clearly as he rejected the Council's demands and claimed humanity's right to exist as a free species. The bridge crew tensed as they heard the alien responses, the threats and insults that followed humanity's declaration of independence. Then came the sound that changed everything. The crystal-clear crack of Arbiter Corvell's appendage striking Ambassador Park across the face. The sound of human blood hitting alien floor. The sound that would start a war. Kim's voice went cold as winter steel. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Our diplomat has been assaulted during peaceful negotiations. Our peaceful intentions have been met with violence. Show them what humanity learned from 5,000 years of warfare." She paused for a moment, thinking of all the battles humanity had fought on Earth, all the lessons learned in blood and fire, all the innovations born from necessity and desperation. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they used kinetic weapons and fusion drives. They were about to learn why humans had chosen those technologies. Initiate Operation Hanbok. Space around the Council station suddenly became much more crowded. 12 human ships appeared as if materializing from nothing, their stealth systems, dropping to reveal sleek, deadly vessels that bore no resemblance to the primitive escorts the aliens had scanned. These ships were works of art dedicated to destruction, every line and curve designed for maximum combat efficiency. "Ghost Squadron, engage primary targets," Kim ordered. "Take out their command ships first." "Shadow Squadron, focus on their heavy cruisers. Do not let them organize a defensive formation. Wraith Squadron, eliminate their long-range communications. I want them cut off from any reinforcements." The human ships moved like hunting wolves, fast and coordinated. Their weapons were not the energy beams or plasma cannons the aliens expected. Instead, they fired streams of dense metal projectiles accelerated to significant fractions of light. Speed. The kinetic rounds passed through energy shields like they were not even there, striking alien hulls with the force of nuclear weapons. "First volley away," Hyun-woo reported. "Multiple hits on Council vessels. Their shields are ineffective against kinetic bombardment." Through the view screen, Kim watched as alien ships began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. The Council fleet had been designed to fight other energy weapon-equipped vessels. Their shields could absorb tremendous amounts of directed energy, but they provided no protection against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. "Admiral," Ji-eun called out excitedly. "I am receiving panic communications from the Council fleet. They are trying to coordinate a response, but they cannot target our ships effectively. Their targeting systems are calibrated for energy signatures," Kim explained to her crew. "Our ships run silent, using passive sensors and minimal energy output. To their systems, we are invisible." The battle was less a fight than a systematic dismantling of the Council fleet. Human ships appeared from nowhere. The Council chamber erupted into complete chaos as alarms began blaring throughout the massive station. Red warning lights flashed from every surface, while automated voices announced emergency protocols in a dozen alien languages. Supreme Arbiter. Velthok's four arms waved frantically as it tried to coordinate with its fleet commanders, but the communication channels carried only static and screams. Tae-Min Park stood calmly in the center of the chamber, blood still dripping from the cut on his face. He watched with quiet satisfaction as the alien representatives scrambled to understand what was happening to their mighty fleet. Through the enormous viewports, brilliant flashes of light marked the destruction of Council warships. Each flash represented years of alien technological advancement reduced to scrap metal in seconds. Counselor Zeth Mara, the reptilian strategist who served as the Council's military advisor, pressed multiple scaled hands against its communication console. Its yellow eyes darted back and forth as it tried to make sense of the tactical reports flooding in from the fleet. "Impossible readings," it hissed in a voice like steam escaping from hot rocks. "Our sensors show empty space where the human fleet was positioned. No energy signatures, no engine emissions, no targeting locks. Yet our ships are being destroyed by precision weapons fire." Arbiter Corvell towered over its platform, the crystal being's body blazing with angry light that cast harsh shadows throughout the chamber. "Run full-spectrum analysis. These primitive humans cannot simply vanish from our sensors. Find them." "We are trying," Zeth Mara replied, its voice rising to a panicked shriek. "All frequencies scanned, all detection methods engaged." "There is nothing there. Our ships are being destroyed by ghosts." Through his quantum communicator, Tae-Min could hear Admiral Kim's calm voice, counting down the seconds until the Council's deadline expired. The alien representatives could hear it too, and their panic grew with each passing moment. Some had abandoned their platforms entirely and were running toward the chamber exits, only to find the doors sealed by emergency protocols. Counselor Reganath's purple bulk quivered with terror as its tentacles slapped uselessly against its communication controls. 23 ships destroyed in 4 minutes. How is this possible? How can primitives with kinetic weapons penetrate our energy shields? Tae-Min spoke quietly, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence that followed the slug-like being's question. "You assumed our technology was primitive because we used kinetic weapons and fusion drives. You never asked why a species would choose such seemingly outdated technology." All eyes in the chamber turned toward him. The human diplomat stood exactly where he had been when Corvell struck him, showing no fear, despite being surrounded by alien beings who wanted him dead. His dark suit was stained with blood, but his posture remained straight and dignified. "Explain yourself," Velthok demanded, its compound eyes reflecting the emergency lighting like fractured mirrors. "Energy weapons require tremendous power generation," Tae-Min said conversationally, as if he were teaching a classroom of students instead of facing a chamber full of hostile aliens. "That power generation creates signatures that can be detected across vast distances. Energy shields work by absorbing and redirecting energy attacks. They are useless against solid projectiles." More explosions lit up the space outside the viewports. The Council fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that struck without warning and vanished before counterattacks could be launched. Ships that had dominated entire star systems were dying like insects swatted by an invisible hand. "Stealth technology," Tae-Min continued. "We learned that energy signatures can be detected across light years of space, so we perfected the art of not being seen. Our ships run silent, using passive sensors and minimal energy output. To your detection systems, they simply do not exist." Corvell's crystalline body dimmed as the implications sank in. "But kinetic weapons have limited range and velocity. They cannot penetrate our armor at long distances." "That would be true if we were using conventional kinetic weapons," Tae-Min agreed. "But we do not use conventional anything. Our projectiles are accelerated to significant fractions of light speed using magnetic acceleration systems. At those velocities, a piece of metal the size of a coin carries the destructive power of a nuclear weapon. The chamber fell silent except for the continued alarms and the distant sounds of explosions. The alien representatives stared at the human diplomat, with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Everything they thought they knew about primitive humanity was crumbling before their eyes. Admiral Kim's voice came through the communicator again, clear and authoritative. 15 seconds remaining. I strongly advise immediate surrender. Zeth Mara's scaled hands flew across its controls as it tried desperately to coordinate the remaining fleet. All ships, implement evasive maneuvers. Use emergency hyperspace jumps to escape the engagement zone. Negative, came the reply from one of the surviving ship commanders. Hyperspace generators are being specifically targeted. We cannot escape. Then form defensive formations. Concentrate your fire. We cannot target the enemy vessels. They appear and disappear faster than our weapons can track. Taman listened to the panicked communications with quiet satisfaction. Every human ship carried advanced artificial intelligence, systems that could process targeting data and coordinate attacks faster than any biological mind could comprehend. The Council fleet was fighting opponents who thought and reacted at computer speeds while remaining completely invisible to alien sensors. Through the viewports, he could see the destruction continuing. The mighty Council fleet that had terrorized this region of space for 300 years was being reduced to burning wreckage in a matter of minutes. It was a demonstration of what happened when bullies finally encountered someone stronger than themselves. 10 seconds, Admiral Kim announced. Supreme Arbiter Velthok raised all four arms in a gesture of desperate authority. Human Admiral, we demand an immediate ceasefire. This attack violates every principle of civilized warfare. Kim's response came back instantly, her voice cold as space itself. You lost the right to claim civilization when you physically assaulted our diplomatic representative. War was your choice, not ours. But our ships cannot fight an enemy they cannot see. This is not honorable combat. Honor? Tamin spoke the word quietly, but it carried throughout the chamber. You speak of honor after striking an unarmed diplomat during peace negotiations. You speak of civilization after threatening to exterminate my entire species. You speak of fairness after demanding our unconditional surrender to alien tyranny. He walked slowly toward Corvell's platform, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The crystal being backed away from the edge, its luminous body flickering with what might have been fear. You wanted to know what humans learned from 5,000 years of warfare, Tamin continued. We learned that the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak, not exploit them. We learned that true victory comes from defeating enemies, so completely that they never threaten peace again. Most importantly, we learned that there is no honor in bullying those weaker than yourself. 5 seconds. Admiral Kim's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Counselor Regnath's tentacles whipped through the air, spraying purple slime in all directions. We surrender. We formally surrender to human forces. Please stop the destruction. Tuss. Late, came the reply from the human fleet commander. You had 30 seconds to surrender. You chose to spend that time making threats and demands instead of showing wisdom. 3 ships remain operational, reported one of the alien fleet commanders. All others destroyed or disabled, requesting permission to surrender. Permission granted, Admiral Kim replied. Any ship that powers down its weapons and shields will be spared destruction. Any ship that continues to resist will be eliminated. The remaining Council vessels immediately went dark, their weapons powering down and shields dropping. In less than 10 minutes, a fleet that had ruled this region of space for centuries had been reduced to 3 disabled ships and a field of burning debris. Tamin touched his communicator and spoke directly to Admiral Kim. Admiral, you are witnessing the conclusion of hostilities. The Council fleet has been neutralized. I am unharmed except for minor injuries sustained during the diplomatic assault. Understood, Ambassador. Are you able to continue negotiations, or do you require medical assistance? I can continue. I believe the Council may be more receptive to reasonable discussion now. A new voice joined the communication channel. Navigation Officer Sung-Ho Park spoke from his position aboard the Soul's Pride. Admiral, we are receiving surrender requests from multiple star systems. News of the battle is spreading through. Their communication network's faster than we anticipated. Captain Sora Yoon added her report from the 2nd Human Squadron. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting no additional Council reinforcements. It appears this fleet represented the majority of their military strength. Dr. Min Jun Han, the medical officer who had been monitoring the diplomatic proceedings, spoke up with concern in his voice. Ambassador, you should receive medical attention. For that facial wound, head injuries can be more serious than they initially appear. 2 hours had passed since the last Council warship surrendered. The massive chamber that had once echoed with alien arrogance now hummed quietly with emergency lighting and the soft whisper of life support systems working to clear the air of smoke and fear. Most of the alien observers had been evacuated, leaving only the 12 Council members and their essential staff. Taemin Park had not moved from his position in the center of the chamber. The cut on his face had stopped bleeding, but he had refused medical treatment until the immediate crisis was resolved. Blood had dried on his traditional Korean diplomatic clothes, a permanent reminder of how this peaceful mission had turned into humanity's first interstellar war. Dr. Min Jun Han from the Human Security Detail had been permitted to enter the chamber and now stood quietly beside the ambassador. The doctor's medical scanner showed that the facial wound was indeed superficial, but his worried expression suggested he was more concerned about the psychological impact of the violence than the physical damage. Admiral So Young Kim's hologram stood near the center platform, her image crystal clear thanks to the quantum communication system. Her calm, professional demeanor had not changed since the battle ended, but everyone in the chamber could feel the iron determination beneath her polite exterior. She represented the full might of Earth's military forces, and the aliens now understood exactly what that meant. Supreme Arbiter Velthok sat motionless on its platform, its 4 arms hanging limply at its sides. The enormous insectoid had not spoken since the battle ended, perhaps finally comprehending the magnitude of its miscalculation. Its compound eyes no longer tracked movement around the chamber, but stared fixedly at the viewports where the debris of its fleet drifted in the starlight. Counselor Regnath had stopped producing its usual stream of purple slime, a sign of extreme stress in its species. The slug-like creature's tentacles moved in slow, hypnotic patterns as it tried to process what had happened to the invincible Galactic Council. Its communication console remained dark, cut off from the outside galaxy by human jamming systems. Arbiter Corvell, the crystal being who had struck the human diplomat, stood at the edge of its platform like a statue made of fractured glass. Its inner light had dimmed to barely visible levels, and hairline cracks ran through its crystalline structure. Whether these were signs of fear or actual physical damage from stress was unclear. Captain So Ra Yoon materialized as another hologram beside Admiral Kim. The younger officer carried a datapad filled with reports from across the galaxy. Her expression was one of amazement as she read updates from human monitoring stations throughout the region. Admiral, she reported formally, we are receiving communication requests from 43 star systems. Most are former Council territories requesting information about humanity's intentions. Several are offering immediate alliance agreements. What about Council reinforcements? Kim asked. Long-range sensors confirmed that this fleet represented approximately 80% of Council military strength. The remaining ships are scattered across their territory in small patrol groups. None appear to be moving toward this system. And the political situation? Rapidly deteriorating for the Council. Our intelligence assets report that at least 6 member species are openly discussing rebellion. The Veltar Confederation has already declared independence and is requesting human protection. The Zephyrian Trade Union is considering similar action. Admiral Kim nodded thoughtfully as she processed this information. The battle had been won in minutes, but the real victory was the collapse of the Council's authority throughout their territory. Fear had been their primary weapon for controlling member species, and that fear had been shattered by humanity's demonstration of superior military technology. Taemin finally spoke, his voice carrying clearly throughout the chamber. Despite the exhaustion that showed in his posture, Council members, the situation has changed dramatically since our last discussion. I believe it is time for new negotiations. Velthok's head turned slowly toward the human diplomat, its mandibles clicking nervously. What? What are your terms? For our surrender. I am not here to accept your surrender, Taemin replied. I am here to discuss the establishment of a new galactic government based on principles of equality and mutual respect instead of fear and domination. The alien representatives exchanged glances filled with confusion and suspicion. They had expected demands for unconditional surrender, reparations, or revenge. The concept of being offered partnership instead of punishment was completely outside their experience. Corvell's voice was like the sound of distant thunder as it spoke for the first time since striking the Diplomat. You defeated our entire fleet in minutes. You could destroy our worlds if you chose. Why do you offer negotiations instead of demanding submission? Because that is what civilized beings do, Taemin answered simply. We fight only when peaceful solutions are impossible. Now that you understand humanity's military capabilities, perhaps we can find peaceful solutions to our differences. Admiral. Kim stepped forward, her hologram making eye contact with each council member in turn. The human species spent 5,000 years learning how to kill each other efficiently. We fought wars with weapons that could destroy entire continents. We developed strategies and tactics that could eliminate millions of people in hours. She paused, letting the implications sink in before continuing. Then we grew tired of war. We learned that true strength comes from protecting the weak, not exploiting them. We discovered that lasting peace requires justice, not just the absence of conflict. Captain Sora approached with another update. Admiral, the Terran Republic Council has transmitted new instructions. They authorize you to negotiate the formation of a provisional galactic government pending full diplomatic conferences on Earth. Understood. Captain Yoon, please prepare communication channels to all systems in this region. It is time to address the galaxy as a whole. Taemin opened his briefcase once again and withdrew a new set of documents. These were not the trade, agreements, and cultural exchange programs he had brought to the original negotiations. Instead, they contained the framework for a completely new approach to galactic governance. These documents outline humanity's proposal for a galactic federation based on the principle of voluntary membership, he announced. Any species may join if they agree to basic standards of behavior toward other members. Any species may leave at any time if they choose to go their own way. Zethmara, the reptilian strategist, leaned forward with obvious interest. What standards of behavior? No slavery or forced labor, no genocide or species extermination, no aggressive expansion into inhabited systems, no interference with the internal affairs of other members. Basic principles that most civilized species already follow. And enforcement of these standards? Admiral Kim's image turned toward the reptilian counselor. The Terran Republic Navy will serve as the Federation's peacekeeping force until other member species can contribute their own ships and personnel. We have already demonstrated our ability to deal with aggressors. Regnath's tentacles began moving more actively as the slug-like being processed the implications. You are offering us membership in this new federation instead of treating us as conquered enemies? Every species deserves a chance at redemption, Taemin replied. The Galactic Council as an institution is dissolved, but the individual species that belong to it are welcome to join the Federation if they choose to abandon their old ways. What about our territories, our colonies, our trade networks? All existing territorial claims will be honored as long as they do not involve enslaved populations or oppressed species. Trade networks will be expanded to include all Federation members. Colonial populations will be given the choice of independence, Federation membership, or continued association with their founding species. Admiral Kim activated a new holographic display that showed a map of the local galaxy. Different colored regions marked current territorial boundaries, trade routes, and population centers. The Federation will be governed by an elected council, with representation based on population and contribution to common defense. No single species will have veto power over the others. And humanity's role in this federation? Velthok asked quietly. We will serve as founding members and peacekeepers until the Federation is stable enough to govern itself, Kim replied. Our goal is not to rule the galaxy, but to ensure that no one else rules it through fear and violence. Captain Sora stepped forward with another report. Admiral, we are now receiving formal applications for Federation membership from 17 different species. The Altarian Republic is offering to host the first constitutional convention. The Centauri Trade Alliance is volunteering to manage economic integration. Excellent. Begin coordination with interested parties for a full diplomatic conference within 30 standard days. Tai Min looked around the chamber one final time, his gaze stopping on each of the former council members. You have a choice to make. You can cling to the old ways of domination and fear, or you can join us in building something better. The decision is yours, but it must be made freely. Corvell stepped forward, its crystalline body still showing. Stress fractures, but glowing slightly brighter than before.